Good evening and welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. I am Vince Edwards, your host. You may know me from Sound Image Productions as well as a couple of closed roadie groups we have on Facebook, one called Death by Loadout, another one called The Backstage Pass. You have come in on a very special night. We have got an amazing show for you. With me this evening is my wonderful, dear good friend and co-host, Kyle Thomas. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Vinny. It's a little cold today, but I think we've been toughing it out in Northern California for the past week. So.
Well, we had, we put the ads up, right? And our dear good friend Jeffrey Raz, the main man, who's been in here many times and been on the show at least a couple times, was warning our guest this evening that he thought he was going to be in the building, so he told him, dress warm.
Like, he's not wrong, man. It's fucking cold up here.
I sent the Raz, and I said, it's only about 53. It's good, baby.
It's a little chilly.
We've done the show where it's a damn 100 degrees in here, too. We got heaters. It's just too darn noisy. There's just limitations on the, sometimes you got to take it for the team, and I'm happy to do it.
It's just like last week's guest, John Ostrin, is like, he come from the same area. It's pretty warm down there. He comes up here and it's just like, holy shit.
He climatized really good. I don't know if you remember the show, but I think he was there in a T-shirt the whole time. I had like 3 layers on, but what a great guest. It was such a treat having him on. It's a person that I absolutely adore, an incredibly talented guy and just a sweet man. And the stuff that he does with fellow brother roadies and stagehands, with helping them with recovery, the roads to recovery, and having sponsorship. And I actually pushed a guy towards his way that reached out, and just what a great thing. He's just an amazing person. So,
I really look up to people that do that, man, and take the time to help somebody else out.
Yeah, and his heart's super into it. Like, he's super real about it. He's helped 4 or 5 people to date get through it and get to a good place, and that's pretty amazing. So
it really is.
And then working with Van Halen and Toto and all the other good stuff. It's just is a wonderful cat. And so it was lovely to have him in the house and get to spend time with him. I hadn't seen him for a minute.
Definitely.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, so we've just been trucking along here at the shop on winter maintenance, getting everything prepped and ready for the busy season. Looks like your brother and Dave kept us pretty busy, so this can be a good year.
Well, I get to pop in with my brother here and there, and I don't do that kind of stuff. My brother sells stuff. I put him in the field, and we work very strongly together. But, man, he is in there going and clicking and doing the things that he does to make stuff happen. And really, let's just take a minute to thank the great David Shadone. Papa is why Sound Image happens, because of their largest, my brother George Edwards, my boss, and Dave Shadone, our boss. Allow me to do this. They support me in it. It's very sweet, very kind, and I frankly couldn't do it without them. And I've worked many years in this business, and I worked at different places, and I always had a sight out to land here. My brother is the same, and we finally were able to put the dots together to make it here and to be a part of Sound Image, and we absolutely love it. Going in our 6th year with this outfit, whatever the actual numbers are. What a treat, and I just want to send out a bunch of love to the captain and the general, the big guys, Georgie and David. Thank you, guys.
Can't thank you enough, boys.
Yeah.
Rick Allen stopped by yesterday, say hello. He came by and offered to do some promos for the show, and went out, was going to go grab lunch, and it was a really good time. It was great to see him here.
He brought Joey with him. He brought his little baby dog.
Yeah, little Joey.
That dog was on something, man. He was losing his mind. It was awesome.
Well, I tell you, the first time I ever met him, he comes into the rehearsal room, and I look at him like, oh, cool, a dog. Immediately pisses on my shoe. I didn't even make it past, like, oh, how adorable. So I was like, what the fuck?
Well,
he didn't pee on my shoe today. I was proud of him.
Joey knows I would have boot kicked his ass across the building. So Joey did not do that to me, but I could see him thinking about it, because that little brain, man, I don't know what he is, but he's an adorable little guy. But it's Rick's dog, and we love Rick Allen, Def Leppard badass, and he's about to go on a big tour. He just got back from that cruise thing, that monster rock metal cruise. But, he's a sweetheart, good friend of the show, friend of the company, and nice guy. So it was nice to see him. I agree.
Yeah. Definitely, when he comes back, we're doing a little run with his wife's band, Lauren Monroe Band.
What are you doing out there? You front of house for her?
Yeah, front of house. We're just one audio tech. There's just a one console kind of tour. Okay. But just 4 days on the East Coast, and we come back. Should be fun.
Sweet. It's a great band. I mean, the people that she has playing with are extraordinary. We've done a bunch of, they've played right here in this very space for some benefits we've done with them. Lovely folks, and, very strong, very solid. Good for you.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, you have fun.
Definitely. Also, we got Mikey a lovely gift. George Edwards. We're speaking highly of our
Put it
Vince's
up on
brother.
the screen, Mikey. Don't deny your shame. It's
He
beautiful.
got a lovely gift from George, and it might be just a giant octopus. It's staring at me right now. It's below all the cameras, so
Yeah, I'm not sure. You got that picture, Mikey? Can you put it up for us? Don't make him get that octopus. So my brother, we call Mikey the octopus, but just behind all these cameras and confidence monitors and lights, there's this guy who's the head of our audio here at Sound Image, sweetheart, dear man, and he does the switching. He handles all the cameras, the shots, the drop-ins, the audio, the RF. He's busy. So we call him the octopus. That's always what we've called him. He's been the guy that makes it all happen for us. He's the executive producer and director of the show, and we just couldn't do it without him. So my brother, I guess, was doing something, and he got one of these big stuffed animals with a big octopus, and it was perfect. It was just perfect for Mikey. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
We honor the octopus. He's a badass. We couldn't do it without him. Thank you, Michael.
Total legend, man.
Yeah, great man.
And lastly, I'd just like to shout out David Ron and Pauline Ortiz Pino, Alcon's Audio.
Love those people.
Couldn't fucking say better things about those two.
David Ron is a dear, good friend. We used to share a space right here in this very office at the last place we were at. We shared a space with him. He is, I love me some Dave Ron. I just can't say that enough. David Ron is a friggin' badass, a sweetheart of a man, and there ain't nothing he can't do in this industry. He's always throwing up great. He always has the guys. He has our guests this evening and other, Greg Price and Brad Maddox and Eric Rogers and everybody over to his demos all the time. They got great gear, and he's just a good human being. And then the lovely Pauline, she holds it down for North America, and she's just such a sweetie and a wonderful woman. So I thought we would just wave and say hi this evening to those lovely people, and thank them for our friendship. We just lucky to know cool people like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, wonderful.
Well, here you got another nugget for the audience today.
I think so I'm gonna put this out there, audience. I might have got a little crazy in the last two shows with the last three guests. Last two shows had three guests. And I just loved these guests. I was very excited. I can't help it. These are people that I've worked with Paul David Hager before, but while doing Devo, so of course that means with his brother Josh as well. But I didn't get to talk to him like that. We're working. That's that. And I'm just fascinated with their career. So I might have fanboyed out a little bit. I might have got a little high strung, a little talky. So
See a couple beard hairs. And
I'm reeling it in a little bit today. We're going to tone it down a little bit because tonight, and it's going to be very hard that it came to this show where I had to make this decision because I think I've outdone myself. Now, we've had the big dudes in here, but I guess we didn't. I would say that. I've said that before, but I really think if there's somebody duking it out for first place in the badasses of the audio engineers in our industry, it's going to be Scoville and the man I have tonight. Let's get him in here. Let's talk about it. I've been lucky enough to get this young man to come and agree to be on our show this evening. I'm going to have to get my eyes out to see what I wrote down for him to keep it kind of simple. Our guest tonight is an award-winning mix engineer with 56 years of experience working with some of the biggest shows and most successful artists of all time in this industry, to include Steely Dan, Whitney Houston. Think about when Whitney Houston was doing the Greatest Love stuff, hitting that Dolly Parton stuff. Bodyguard, he was out mixing that.
Can't get bigger than that.
You know what I'm saying? One that I'm really interested in, I have to know about, the divine Miss M, Bette Midler. I mean, just these amazing, James Taylor for the last 18 years. I think he did 11 with Steely. I've got to get in this guy's head and hear his stories. He's an amazing human being, one of the most accomplished mix engineers in our industry. It is the one and only David Morgan. How are you, Mr. Morgan?
I'm doing very well, Vince. And how are you, Kyle?
I'm doing great, man. Great to see you.
It's just such a treat. Thank you for...
Good to see you both.
Thank you, my friend. I know this is... Although I've seen you do other ones in these, I know you're, you keep it close and you're a somewhat introverted guy, but you come and you kill these things, and I can't think of a better representative for what we do here. If you don't mind, I'm just going to hit the ground running and dig around in some history. I got to ask you some questions. Is that okay?
Go for it.
All right, Big Daddy. Listen, I'm a little bit of a fanboy. I am intellectually, honestly interested in the way that we've all got from where we came up to where we are now. And I know that one of we talked a little bit about the stuff you did in the 70s in Woodstock and studio and building gear and coming up in a real organic way from your musician standpoint. But I know in '81, you got together with Dirk and Roy Schubert and you opened up You were a managing partner in the Schubert Systems Group. Can you please tell me about that? I happen to be fascinated with Dirk. He's a dear friend. And
Dirk is absolutely a wonderful man and was an incredible wealth of knowledge for someone like me who wasn't the most technical person in the world, as far as creation of sound systems from the ground up. And I mean, my experience there taught me how to build an entire sound system, starting with the power distro, and just copper bars. Starting from there and growing it like a farmer grows his fields. It was an unusual kind of a circumstance that got me down into the South Bay, because I had been mixing through A1 Audio up in Hollywood with Al Siniscal. And Al sent me out on the Doobie Brothers, and that was my really big break in the business. But I had been doing Barry Manilow. I had Kenny Newman's job before Kenny, and Kenny's much better at it than I am. I got to tell you, Kenny does a great job.
But let me linger there for just a second, because my mother would not forgive. My mom wouldn't forgive me. I love Barry Manilow. I was raised with all the singer-songwriters in the '70s. You got to do Barry Manilow, buddy. That's amazing.
It was his biggest tour. It was the One Voice tour. We had a 50-voice choir in every city and a 50-piece orchestra. It was for 1980. It was a pretty adventuresome endeavor to take out into sheds and arenas. And I actually had a ball mixing the shows, but I missed rocking. I got to tell you, so I went back to the Doobie Brothers, and it actually worked out better, because, as I said, Kenny Newman just does a killer job for Barry, and then my career went the way it should anyway. But anyway, right in the beginning of 1981, I get a call, and the gentleman on the phone introduces himself as Jim Gamble, and I don't know Jim Gamble. And Jim Gamble says, I mean, I knew the name, obviously,
sure.
but, because, he's a god in our business.
That's right.
And so this is like, Moses getting the call from the burning bush, right? And so Gamble is the burning bush. And he says to me, my sound company is falling apart. And I said, what do you mean, Jim? And he said, the people who bought Tycho Brahe are driving it into the ground. And I said, well, what can I do? And I guess he had found out that I was a ramrod, that I got a lot of projects done at A1. I completely redid the hanging system. Yeah. I redid their monitors, the porting, the tuning of the cabinets. I just did a wholesale thing. And I guess somehow that got to Jim. And I mean, I had a ball doing that. And so Jim said, will you go down for like 2 weeks and just tell me what's going on? So I go down, and he's right, it's chaos. In the aftermath of Bob Bogdanovich selling Tycho Brahe, it was really on the verge of going bankrupt. And so I told that to Jim, and he said, well, just stay down there a couple of weeks and see if you can make some suggestions on how they can run the business in a profitable way and a more sensible way. Well, I stayed the 2 weeks, and after the 2 weeks, the woman who actually owned the company, a woman named Lynn Perrier, and by then the name of the company had changed to Innovative Audio, right, which it was briefly. Mm-hmm. And she said, will you come to work for me as general manager? And my jaw dropped, because I was just getting to the point where I knew how to mix an arena, Mm-hmm. And so I said,
tough decision, I bet.
Really? Yeah, I said, really? And I talked it over with myself, and I said, let's try it. And it was an extreme challenge, sitting behind an office desk, not a mixing desk.
Yeah.
And I had to teach myself how to be a businessman. And I took a company that was nearly $500,000 in debt and turned it profitable. Now, I don't know how I did it. I know how I did it. I had a lot of help especially from JBL and from Cerwin Vega, because they made all of our amplifiers for us. The vendors couldn't have been nicer, because they wanted us to dig out of the hole so we could pay the past debts.
Oh, they had a vested interest in your success.
Yeah, but Mark Gander took me under his wing, and he taught me so much. Between Gamble and Schubert and Mark Gander,
huge.
I actually started to learn something. I was pretty astounded by it, and it was an unusual experience. And in 1983, we had been marketing together with Schubert Systems, and Schubert Systems was actually Dirk's garage in Manhattan Beach, and his wife Pam. That was the whole business of Schubert Systems.
Right.
And he rented out electronics, Gamble consoles and effects racks. And so we had the PA and the monitors and power and everything else. And so we would quite often market together, and it worked out well on the Doobie Brothers. It worked out well on Toto. It worked out well for the Tubes. And so Dirk and his dad, Roy, decided, they made me an offer saying that they wanted to buy the assets of Innovative Audio and that I could have a third of the company if I'd stay.
Wow.
And once again, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
I said,
that's big.
all I did was try to get the guys paid and get these debts paid, and I figured I'd be going back on the road.
Right.
Well, now I'm not just the general manager. Now I'm the managing partner.
Wow.
And so my responsibility grew more. And it was a fun relationship. As I said, I learned so much from Schubert, and because he's got so much to teach. He's one of the finest filter designers in the world.
Brilliant.
And of course, from Gamble, Gamble is just every one of us. I'm 72. Jim's about 5 or 6 years older, so every one of us looked up to Jim.
Yeah.
And he did everything. He did Deep Purple. He did the Stones. Tycho Brahe was the first traveling sound company.
That's right.
Come on, this is God. As I said, it's just like talking to God.
Exactly.
And so it was a little frustrating taking myself off the road. I did do the Doobies' last tour in '82. Once I was running the business, I did Mike McDonald's first 2 solo tours. I did tour work with Kenny Loggins, and with Glenn Fry.
Yeah.
But it could only be short stuff because I had to keep coming back to run the business. Yeah. And Dirk got to go out, travel the world with Toto or whoever he was out with. Dirk
Right.
just went out whenever he wanted to.
Yeah.
And as he should, because he has to prove whether or not our designs were working.
That's right.
And one of us had to do it, and so it ended up being a pretty good relationship. We had a bad run of luck at the end of 1985. And going into '86, we were a little strapped for money, and we'd had a couple of tours canceled that really took us by surprise. And Dirk and his dad decided that they were going to consolidate the business a little bit, and so they offered me a buyout. And by that time, I was really burnt out with running a sound company. It's this guitar player sitting behind a desk making believe he's a CEO,
Yeah.
And so I was a little surprised when they first brought it up, but then I understood what they were doing, and it gave me the opportunity to go back to mixing. So this is 1986, and by the fall of 1986, I was out mixing Whitney Houston's first headline tour.
But that was a huge tour. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Oh, it was greatest love tour. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never heard anyone sing like that in my life, and I never will again.
Probably one of the best vocalists of all time. Yeah, she's extraordinary. Was extraordinary.
Oh God. Mm-hmm. Oh, she's just and heavenly. She was 23 when I went to work for her. She was so sweet.
Yeah.
And I did those first 3 years. I did 87, 88, 86, 87, 88. And not only was Whitney an absolute joy to mix as a sound person and to listen to as a musician. We did a show at Wembley Arena back when it was,
The original
before
Wembley.
when it was all red brick.
Yeah.
The Johnny Weissmuller swimming pool from the 1924 Olympics. That's where Tarzan made his legend there.
Exactly.
And a lot of the records that Weissmuller set at that Olympics stood into the 40s.
I think that's right.
And so it was hallowed ground.
Yes.
But I get a call after the show at the Royal Garden Hotel. I'm sure we're all familiar with that.
Famous
in Kensington.
place.
And exactly. And the gentleman on the phone introduces himself as he's a very nice man in a very engaging English accent, said, "My name is Ian Hovland. I'm Paul Simon, the manager, and I was at the show at Wembley last night. If you can make that awful place sound that good, we want you to come mix the Graceland tour."
Again,
and
gigantic.
After I got done jumping up and down and doing cartwheels and trying to maintain my composure, I agreed to start to work for Paul Simon in 1986, right before Christmas. And Graceland speaks for itself. It's one of the most phenomenal music events ever in the history of our business.
It's a massive thing. Yeah,
I stayed with. Oh, it was so cool.
Yeah,
I stayed with Paul for 21 years after that, through into 2007.
Well, let's talk.
The only reason I left Paul.
Go ahead.
Well,
no.
The only reason I had to leave Paul after 21 years.
Yeah.
Was a conflict with James Taylor.
Okay.
And I had been so lucky with juggling artists. At one time, I was juggling Steely Dan, Lionel Richie, Bette Midler, and Paul Simon.
Oh no, you were going every 2-3 months out to another thing. It seems you virtually have no breaks in your history. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was an amazing run of luck that I was able to do almost every tour. And I missed one leg of a Bette Midler tour in 2003 because I was doing Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
But I went right back to it in 2004.
Yeah.
And but in 2006, I had to choose between Paul and James in the fall of 2006 because Paul had scheduled a summer tour. And then in the middle of it, added on more dates in September and October, and I couldn't do it because I'd already committed to James. So that was the end of my. I went back and did a few more shows in the spring of 2007.
Yeah.
But that last tour, the tour in 2006 was the last tour I did with Paul, and it was really a heartbreaking moment to have to resign from that particular post because it was just so incredibly rewarding. I mean, the opportunity to work with Paul Simon for that many years and to go through all the various incarnations of the band, it was just, I was so flattered and so thrilled and so overjoyed just to be part of the organization when I first got hired. And you know what? I felt exactly the same way when I finished.
Oh, I bet. That's wonderful. I mean, what a fortunate thing to be able to say. It doesn't always go that way. And it's again, though, Paul Simon, starting off with the Graceland thing, again, I remember that as being one of the largest events of that year, easily. And mixing that band, was there, I believe he was traveling with the South African musicians with that band. And that was...
Yes,
Yeah, and I imagine that miking that up and making that happen was a little bit of a challenge. How do you remember it?
It was a real challenge because we didn't really know how well the thing was going to sell. So we went out with a 3-person sound crew. Me and Dick Weber and Jerry Fradley from Britannia Row. Yeah. Jerry did monitors. Dick Weber hung the PA, and I did front of house. And so we were all working, from load in to load out.
Yeah, I bet.
And just 3 of us doing a fairly large band. I mean, we had a drummer, 2 percussionists, the 2 guitar players, the 3 horn players, the three singers. I mean, it wasn't a small setup.
No.
So we had a lot of help from the backline guys, but there were only two backline guys, Dicka Jones and Andy Forster. Yeah, it was oh yeah, because we had no idea how it was going to sell.
Yeah.
And the momentum just kept building and building and building. And, when we came back to the States, and then when we went back to Europe a second time, we were a huge tour. Then the second time in Europe, we were in stadiums.
Yeah. No.
And so it was, it really had a life of its own, the Graceland tour. It was such an exceptional thing because it wasn't just a Paul show. It was a review.
Yeah.
It was, Paul came out and did 2 or 3 songs. Then Hugh Masekela took over and he did
it was
3,
really,
4 songs.
Yeah, talented.
Hugh was marvelous.
Yeah.
Incredible. Absolutely marvelous.
Absolutely.
And then Paul would do a few more songs. And then Miriam Makeba came out. She did 3 songs.
Wow.
And then she and Paul sang a duet on the song on Graceland called African Skies.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paul would do 3 more songs. And then Mambazo came out. So Ladysmith Black Mambazo, the 10-man a cappella choir.
Extraordinary.
They came out, they did 3 songs. And then the most, I'd say inspirational or the moment in where that made all the hair on your arms and the back of your neck stand up every night was when Paul would come out to sing Homeless, the a cappella song with Ladysmith Black Mambazo.
Wow. And
they would start that intro in Zulu. And after finishing the Zulu part, everything went down to and John Smeaton was doing lights on this, and he made the whole Mambazo thing look like a Rembrandt painting. It was like the figures were glowing, but there was no light anywhere else. It was so cool, so cool.
Sounds great.
And then when they finished their intro, everything went the sound diminishes and diminishes, and then it goes quiet, and then you hear this very, very small voice, homeless. And just it's making the hair on my back of my neck stand up now. Just remember,
absolutely.
I mean, it was such a beautiful moment, and Graceland is when I found out that you can really control people's emotions with volume and texture, and that was a really important moment for me as far as honing my craft as an engineer goes, and how to get an emotional response out of a console. That might be the real trick of what we do, is how to coax an emotional response out of a piece of electronics.
Yeah. Well, I know you're not big on the idea of ones and zeros of the technology. It's about using it as an instrument and making it have a feeling and give a feeling. Not dissimilar to the one you just mentioned about the hair up on your neck and your arms. That is a magical moment in a live performance and a thing like that. I got to ask you, what's it like being in a place like Central Park with 750,000 people? How do you mix a show like that?
Well,
Jesus.
Not only were there 750,000 people, but Phil Ramone was standing right next to me, right? And
no pressure.
So, no pressure. Roy Halley, the guy who engineered all the Simon and Garfunkel records and the Graceland record and the Rhythm of the Saints record, all the Paul solo stuff, is in the truck doing the broadcast for HBO, and he's on a headset with Roy, with Phil Ramone and Roy are talking to each other over a private intercom line, and the headphones on Phil lasted about halfway through this first song, which was the song called "Obvious Child," which off of the Rhythm and Saints record,
right.
And we had about 30 or 40 of the Brazilian drummers from Ola Doom come up from Bahia. And so there was this massive noise of the Sordu drums and the Repaniki snares, just like Obvious Child is just this very, very cool song. One of my favorite Paul Simon songs ever.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And by the time we're getting into the end of Obvious Child, where the drums are taking it out and Paul's singing his little falsetto oohs. And the thing bills and bills. Phil takes off the headset and says, "I can't do this." Puts the headset down. He danced the whole rest of the show. It was just the coolest thing in the world.
That's great. I thought you were going to say Phil took a powder, and I was like trying to imagine that. But what you just said, I could actually imagine that, where you just let it in and let it take him.
No, it was Phil, me, and Mike Wolf from Claire dancing our asses off all the way through the show. So it might have been the best audio day of my entire life.
That was an absolute phenomenal event. I remember the whole country was, well, I think the world really, and the way it came off was top notch. It was an extraordinary event.
There's 750,000 people. I mean, I looked right before the show. There was a big jumbotron behind us, so it took an effort. You had to hang on the scaffolding upright and lean out and to look at the crowd behind us.
Yeah.
And I did it right before the show, and it was somewhat terrifying.
Breathtaking.
I mean, good God,
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that many people in one place, especially in New York City.
Yeah.
And during that, we had 4 arrests and 1 injury.
That's nothing.
The arrests were three were for drunk and disorderly. 1 was a pickpocket. And the one guy who got hurt fell out of a tree. He was rocking so hard. He climbed a tree for a better view. He was rocking so hard he fell out and broke his ankle. And that was it. That was the entire police and medical emergency for 750,000 New Yorkers in one place. I thought that was pretty phenomenal.
I don't think we could redo that show and have those same results. I think today it might be very, very different results. I had a thing with the Grateful Dead at Laguna Seca, which is a giant racetrack, and there was a similar amount of people for 3 days. Bruce Hornsby, it was extraordinary. It was a thing that I never want to find myself in the middle of again. It was, like I said, there was a terrifying quality to it there, and the people were nowhere near as well behaved as the ones you just described. But that must have been an extraordinary event, and good something to have on your badge there. You did that and really killed it.
It was the epitome of making a joyful noise. I mean, it was as close to the biblical description of making a joyful noise as you could get. I've always felt that rock shows have supplanted going to church in many ways. I mean, the spirituality that you get from the commonality of experience and gathering together in one place and being of a like mind and like emotions is very similar to the gatherings that used to take place in the big cathedrals. So it's not just entertainment,
Yeah.
It's
an experience.
We're doing a lot for mental and emotional health as well.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
For those reasons, I take my job very serious. I have a whole lot of fun, but I do take my job extremely serious.
Well, and
I want everyone to have the same experience in their seat that I'm having in my seat. And that's been the thing that's driven me in my career as a systems guy, because I've often been my own systems guy.
Yeah.
In the old days, I used to walk to every single seat in the arena and make sure that everybody was hearing right. And, and back in the days remember in the very old days, you'd have me up walking in the balcony. I'd have somebody walking underneath me so they could relay messages. This is before walkie-talkies,
Right.
So I would yell down to the person who was kind of following me on the next level down, and that person would yell to the person in front of the house who was standing there with the rack of Clarks,
Yeah.
And I would yell, "Take out 3 dB at 800 hertz," and then that would get relayed, and then 30, 40 seconds later, I'd actually hear the change. So it took a while to get it done up, but I always walked everywhere, and only stopped doing it in recent years when Claire came out with their Cohesion 12 system.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that's a very unusual line array because It's one of the few I know where the top boxes sound exactly like the bottom boxes and sound exactly like the boxes in the middle.
Wow.
And I had been used to years of line arrays sounding too bright on top, too woompy in the middle, and too thin on the bottom, right?
Right.
And because that's kind of the nature of the beast. Well, I have no idea what Claire did. I've never taken one of the cabinets apart to look at it. But the very first time we had it out in 2016, we were rehearsing in Lubbock, Texas, the home of Buddy Holly.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the top of the arena and walked down, and I didn't hear anything change.
Wow.
And I said to myself, this is a whole new ballgame. Now, granted, there are systems, more than one system now that can do that.
That's right.
But it's at the time it was a real eye opener, and I said to myself, maybe I don't have to take the elevator up and walk every seat in the upper balcony.
It's a definite game changer, but it shows to your character that you had so much respect for the audience that you would take that time and do that. And the kids have no idea the struggle that they don't have to endure. The kids nowadays with their little laptops and tablets, walking around tuning a room.
Well, the TC 1128 equalizer was a huge advance, right? Yeah. Well, but then again, we used to have that 150-foot cable that you'd put on the TC head.
Yeah.
And we'd walk everywhere. And the ways that we'd use get the TC head up to the next level and stuff, you'd have to use all your ingenuity to get that cable where it had to go. But it was that changed everything. Programmability and equalizers really changed everything.
That's right.
And that was a digitally controlled analog equalizer. And I know that in working with TC, Claire wanted it to sound very much like a Clark. Mm-hmm. So that was the goal, and I thought they succeeded very well. And but when the Lake stuff came out, then my journeys all around the arena became so much more intensive, because now the granularity increased, where I was able to make changes in like 2 boxes of a line array at a time. If the highs were running off of one amplifier, right? Mm-hmm. So I got granularity down to 2 cabinets, and so it was a real godsend working with the earlier line arrays with Claire, because I4 was a little cranky. Yeah. I5 was a little better. I actually ended up using I3s more than anything else, because I like the width of the cabinet. I like the 130, 140 degrees of the cabinet. I like the sound of the 12s as opposed to having 18s and 10s in the I4s or I5s.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
And it was just it was just a more serviceable box for me, and so I stuck with it. But a 20 high column of I3s in an arena, you had to do a lot of stuff in the shading and separate EQs. So the granularity was really welcome. And I was so pleased that Bruce Jackson and David McGrath were able to contribute this wonderful, wonderful piece of gear to our experience as live sound engineers. And Bruce would have me come and do sales meetings and stuff with him, and I'd be the man on the street, and he'd say, "Tell people exactly what you do with this," and I'd go through my thing, like tell them about the yelling. This replaced the yelling thing that we talked about earlier. We kind of had our own little song and dance thing going. It was I sure miss Bruce Jackson. I got to tell you, I sure miss Bruce. He was inspirational and a great friend, and just an absolutely incredible front of house engineer. But he and David will never ever be forgotten for bringing us Lake.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
Who knew? Who knew that we could have this level of control from any seat you wanted in any given performance area.
Yeah.
And for me, it was instant peace of mind. You know, here I am. I can make it bad or I can make it good.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I know that I made it good, then I could, like, if you're in a theater, you'd have no idea what the balcony sounds like because you're mixing under a balcony and it sounds like this.
That's right. Yeah.
But I could really have confidence and not want to go to the equalizers and change what I'm hearing under the balcony. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was to be able to really fine tune a column on a line array is
a beautiful thing.
That really jumped our shows forward as far as the overall sound of the show and the amount of subtlety that I could put into a mix, you know, and actually have it heard.
Well, that's actually the word on the street. You know, we're not a huge community, so a lot of us talk between each other, and we kind of compare notes. Some of the guys like to put their foot on the gas. The other guys like to bring it in, stop it under amplitude, and really defined and sweet. And that's the word on the street about you. I know this from personal experience, but yeah, you've always had a way of really making it a very defined, beautiful, clean kind of organic mix that it just feels right. It's enveloping, and the array of stars that you worked with, it's extraordinary to me. You know, you mentioned the big show that Paul would bring. I know James goes out with a beautiful, huge set, and they like to bring it big. The Divine Miss M. I don't know if people don't know what Bette Midler brings to the table. You got to work with her for 16, 17 years. Extraordinary performer. I mean, and she owns the whole stage. So I imagine for you out front, trying to keep a leash on that and bring the magic that is Bette Midler must have been one hell of an experience.
Well, I got a call from her when she was living in Coldwater Canyon out here in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told to be at her house at a specific time. And I was there, and I knock on the door, and the woman taking care of Sophie, Bette's 4-year-old daughter at the time, answers the door, and I say, I'm here to see Miss Midler. My name is David Morgan. Well, Miss Midler's not here. And I said, really? Looked at my watch, and I was right on time.
Yeah.
And I said, well, should I come back? And she said, no, come on in. And she should be back anytime. And so we're hanging out and talking, and Sophie wanted to play, and I don't remember what game she wanted to play, but she got me and her governess or sitter or personal secretary or whatever you have for a 4-year-old at the time.
Right.
And so we're down on the floor playing, and time goes by, and we're all losing track of time, and then this front door bursts open, and this tiny woman walks in and starts yelling.
Yeah, that's right.
Who the hell are you?
A reasonable response in some ways.
And I said, Bette, I'm your 1:00 appointment. And she looked at her watch and said, oh, fuck.
That also sounds like her.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
And so we, starting off from that experience, we just started laughing, and you know, she thought I was there molesting her child or something, I guess. I don't know, but you know, because we're down on the floor, you know, playing some sort of game with Sophie.
Right.
But she was just laughing and hooting and having the greatest time. And so at the end of the interview, Midler says, all right, come out on the road. We're going to go do 6 months. Let's go. And I found out the vaudeville world.
That's very theatrical show. Yeah.
And we were doing the last vaudeville show on the road.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the amazing, talented band and singers she had with her as well.
Extraordinary.
We had such a kick-ass band. Sonny Emery was drumming. Bobby Lyle, the piano player, was the musical director. Buzzy Featon and Danny Jacob were the guitar players. Lenny Castro was the percussionist. It was a stupidly good band, and all old friends of mine. So of course I wanted to be there. And the girls who were the Harlettes are just so talented and so funny, and
hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
For all the modern acts who say it's too strenuous to dance and sing at the same time, I will tell you that Bette Midler and the Harlettes sing every single note of every single show, and even to the point when they're in mermaids' tails, flopping around the stage, or in electric wheelchairs doing choreographed moves and singing away. And so I had such intense admiration for these ladies on the stage that I stuck around for 17 years. And once again, it was a conflict that made me had to say goodbye, because I had James and Carol coming up in 2010, and I had to. We ended up parting ways with Bette Midler in before Christmas in 2009, but it was a great run. Probably 93 through 2009.
I never saw her not do an extraordinary show. She brought it all. That band, that team, extraordinary. I can't let it pass that you just brought up Carole King, and I'm pretty sure, and James Taylor concert that you departed Bette Midler to pick up. Now, that's not a small thing. Come on, man. That's the Brill Building right there. Talk about one of the most amazing songwriters of all time. Carol, you don't get far from that. She's extraordinary. What was that like?
She was the nicest lady you'd ever want to work with. I mean, she was like everybody's Aunt Carol.
Yeah.
And, she'd ask us if we were getting enough food at catering. Are you getting enough sleep on the bus? I mean, do you need some chicken soup? I mean, she was just Aunt Carol. And the show itself was just, it was magic. It was just magic. Yeah. And, Paul Simon's office is in the Brill Building too.
Exactly.
And he's on the 5th floor.
Yeah.
And Lauren Michaels is right under him with Broadway Productions,
Yeah.
And they're neighbors at Paul's place on 69th and Central Park West too. The top penthouse on the north side is Paul's. The top penthouse on the right, on the south side, is Lauren Michaels. They're side by side there too. It's just really funny. And
they've been fast friends since '76. He was the first artist to go on Saturday Night Live, I believe. So they've always been very close. Among the first. He's and who can forget the turkey suit? The turkey suit. And it was not funny to him. I don't feel funny. I remember that so well. That was hilarious.
He doesn't get enough credit for being an actor, for being a deadpan actor like that. I mean, that whole the facial expressions while he's in that turkey suit, the pain that he transmits, the embarrassment.
It's embarrassing. You're doing great, Lawrence says. No, I'm not. You guys, if you haven't seen this, tune to Paul Simon SNL's '70s. Singing, I forget what song.
The turkey suit.
In the turkey suit. You have to see this. It's hilarious. It's wonderful, wonderful TV. It's a privilege.
He did Still Crazy in the turkey suit.
Still Crazy after all these years. That's right.
I think so.
So good. So damn good. All right. Now, I had to get to this. I had no choice. It's been popular demand. I'm going to bother you with an annoying question that you've answered 1,000 times. So I know you probably have a good idea where I'm going. But, in our industry, different artists come to mind when it comes to ringing out a room, when it comes to tuning your system and proving your stuff out. And it's not uncommon for people to use Toto. I know that I have friends that use Katie Ling or Sade, but the big guys in the game for that have always been Steely Dan. I know you did 11 years with Steely Dan. First of all, I'd like to hear about your experiences with Steely Dan, but I have to ask, and you know that we've had this question asked, and you've been asked a million times. What do you use to tune for a PA? What do you tune up your PA doing Steely Dan?
As I would be setting up my front of house desk every morning, I would be asked that question.
Yes. That's why I prefaced it so much, because I knew he'd be annoyed by this. But
It's fucking awesome.
And not annoyed at all. I mean, after a while, it became a challenge to think up snappy answers. But I'm not a person who uses pink noise. And yes, I do use music, but no, I don't use what I look at, especially if we're looking at Nightfly. Fagen's Nightfly, which is what most people think of when they think of this. They think of either IGY or Ruby Baby, right?
Right.
And I don't see the point in putting a really perfect recording on first. You want to get to the point where you can actually listen to that perfect recording before you put it on, right?
Sure.
And so I have a process, and I have a sequence of songs that I use to excite certain frequencies within a listening environment. And that's what they're for. The songs have the musical content, and the fact that I even like the songs doesn't matter. It matters that they give me certain bits of information at certain frequency bands that tell me everything I need to know about the room and guide me through the equalization process. So it's a fixed routine, and I don't put on what I think is a really fantastic recording until I'm about 45 minutes into this.
Makes
right
sense.
And by then, if everything has gone well, when I put on a Tony Brown produced Vince Gill track, then I'm looking at what I think is a beautifully done and perfect recording. And I finished with an Alison Krauss track. I finished with Lucky One, which is just a marvelous sounding record. And it tells me everything I need to know. It tells me, because it's an upright bass, so if I can hear some definition, get some good bottom end out of the upright bass, if her voice is not nailing me to the back wall, if I can hear everything that Tyminski and Ronnie Block are playing on the guitars or the mandolin, if I can hear Allison's violin coming in perfect, then that to me, so after I'm done with that sequence, I'm happy to play anything you want me to play. But you're never going to hear Ruby Baby, Nightfly, or any of those classic tracks. I like, if I do play anything by Steely Dan for my own fun, I actually like to play stuff off of Two Against Nature. I thought the collaboration between Roger and Elliot on that was really fantastic. I love Two Against Nature. I love that tour. That was the first tour we had John Harrington playing guitar with us, and boy, he and Walter were just monsters together.
Yeah.
I had so much fun with that band. I had Cornelius Bumpus in the band from the Doobie Brothers, so I had family in the band,
Absolutely.
And God rest his soul, Cornelius was such a wonderfully gifted player, and I miss him. Oh, what a man. And just one of the funniest guys. He and Walter would banter. They had the funniest banter. Just Cornelius would be real gruff. Walter would be snide and snippy.
That's how I remember Walter,
and Cornelius would play. Yeah, Cornelius would play it at being real gruff, which we all knew was an act because he's teddy bear. And we had a lot of fun out there, especially the year that Roger came out. He came out for that Y2K tour and did ear monitors for Donald. And that was a lot of fun just to have Roger out there. Boy, that guy can tell jokes. He's so funny. Just such a funny guy. In addition to being one of the finest engineers who ever lived, he was a marvelous raconteur. And
let's be giving credit where it's due. We're talking about Roger Nichols right now, who's extraordinarily talented.
Yes,
guy.
we are.
Did you ever feel any kind of God, just coming up behind the pressure of dealing with Elliot? I mean, these are some serious badasses, and then you come into the fold. Is there any kind of performance pressure that comes when now you got Roger out here doing ears for? You just know you got it in your heart. You got the confidence you're going to kill it.
Roger actually never came out to listen to front of house except maybe one time, and he didn't come out on purpose to talk to me. He came out to hear something specific in an arrangement. And when he was walking back to the stage to his monitor position, he stopped by front of house and said, "Sounds great." And then he turned and walked away. And that was the extent of our conversation about,
that's high praise, though, right there.
My approach to mixing Steely Dan.
Yeah.
During my 11 years with Steely Dan, Walter came out to consult with me one time.
Yeah.
Once in 11 years. And Donald never came out to front of house.
No
Donald
kidding.
just trusted me implicitly, and
That's amazing.
I was so flattered that I was able to create a product that instills such confidence in these guys, because they weren't all that fond of performing.
Yeah.
But during the 11 years that I was there, we had a great time.
Yeah.
We did great shows. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I had Ricky Lawson as the drummer for the first few years,
Mhm.
and then I had Keith Carlock. Poor me, poor me. And then
Coming to the board pretty good, right, buddy? What you do with it after that? If you fuck that up, excuse my language, but if you mess that up, that would be kind of on you, because they're sending you good signal.
People ask me, if they ever ask me that question, what is the secret of your success? I say, the secret of my success is working for really, really good musicians who make me look good.
Yeah, well said.
And witnessed by the fact that Steve Gadd and I have been together, between Paul Simon and James Taylor, for over 35 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what a privilege that is. I get
huge.
to listen to Steve Gadd play every night.
Yeah, that's kind of a big
it's
deal.
just crazy.
Yeah.
And we had a who's who in Paul's band, and of course we had a who's who in Steely Dan, and we had quite a star-studded lineup in Bette Midler's band as well.
Absolutely.
But when we got with James Taylor, we have just the absolute cream of the crop. We got Landau playing guitar, and to listen to Mike Landau play every night is me as a guitar player makes me want to never play the guitar again. I mean, the guy is just, and we've actually we've been doing research, and it is our theory that Mike Landau is now the most recorded guitar player of all time.
He is seen and done.
Because he is Mr. Session Guy. He is that guy.
You think more,
and I've been working with Mike since
You think more than
1983
the Wrecking
was
Crew
the first time.
than Tommy from the Wrecking Crew? I mean, he's on 600 recordings.
Oh, we're looking at over 2,000 with Mike.
Oh, geez, Louise. My God, that's
yeah,
extraordinary.
yeah, it's absolutely extraordinary. And I first encountered him when he was like 24, 25, and he was playing guitar for Boz Scaggs when I was working for Boz. Mm-hmm. And what a privilege it's been to watch him grow and become the absolutely stellar player he is.
Yeah. And
I mean, nobody does tone like Mike Landau, and taste, and to fit in to James Taylor's songs and the arrangements of James Taylor's songs, the sparseness of many of the arrangements. It really takes a lot of these absolutely insanely good session musicians to hide their light under a bushel a little bit, and just come out at the right times, which of course Gadd is the master of.
So he can in the pocket, that's
we have Luis Conti playing percussion. Is there a better Latin percussionist in the world? I don't think so.
No.
We have Blue Lou Marini playing saxophone with us from the Blues Brothers, from Blood, Sweat, and Tears. We have Blue Lou.
I love Blue Lou.
We have
so good.
We have Walt Fowler playing trumpet with us from the Fowler Brothers from Zappa's band.
My God.
It's crazy. We have Larry Goldings playing the piano, who's one of the top jazz pianists in the world.
Embarrassment
it
of
just goes
riches.
on and on.
Yeah, it's a true embarrassment
Oh
of
God!
riches.
And then the captain of the team, the musical director, is the bass player who might have the most lyrical bass playing style I've ever heard in my life. It's Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, he's
You
amazing.
know,
Yeah,
and just crazy good.
absolutely amazing.
And so, once again, I say, the secret of my success is to surround myself with the best musicians in the world. It's really hard for me to screw it up. I gotta tell you.
Well, you've made a good argument for the fact that you've chosen well in your career path. That there's a bunch of amazing, musicians in the mix, but nobody can take from what you've been able to pull off. When you went out with Fleetwood Mac, I know there was a lot of folks that really appreciated. I think this was 2018, 2019. What you were able to bring to Fleetwood Mac. It's a very special band. I know you have history with Stevie, and we're very familiar with her stylings and what you need to do to make her sound her best. What's it like going out with Mick Fleetwood? Was this Sands? Was this without Lindsay, or was it Vince Gill time? Were you out there with Vince?
No, it was Neil Finn.
Neil Finn. Oh,
Crowded
no
House.
kidding! Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Mike Campbell from Petty's band.
Oh, he's one of my favorite guitarists. I enjoy him. He's such a great dude.
Well, he and Stevie were good friends because Stevie and Tom were incredibly good friends.
Yes.
And so he was a natural to come into the band. Recruiting Neil Finn was a stroke of genius because boy could he sing those Lindsay songs. Oh my God,
he's got a hell of a voice. Lindsay couldn't sing those songs at the end, sadly, and Neil, but yeah, I could see that working.
Oh, Neil's so strong, so strong, and a really good guitar player, and an incredibly nice guy. I had a wonderful time mixing that tour. I was so pleased when Stevie asked me to do it. I had been recruited to do it several times in the past, but every time I wanted to do it, I couldn't do it. And because it was in an era when I was still working for Paul, or I just started working for James, there always seemed to be something in the way. Starting when they got back together for the dance in '97, I was one of the first people to get a call, but I couldn't do it, and I was really, really upset because I wanted to do the dance badly, and then 03, I got the call as well. Couldn't do it then because Simon and Garfunkel was out for that long tour in 03.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to say no to Simon and Garfunkel.
You couldn't. There was no way. You didn't have a choice. You had to do that.
No
you
way.
had to do that.
Oh, God, that tour was
National.
tour was amazing.
Yeah.
And the Everly Brothers were on in the middle of the show.
Stop it.
I finally got to mix John and Phil Everly.
That's the beginning of rock and roll right there.
No, it doesn't.
No, that's pretty great.
If I wanted to get started in the music business because I saw Elvis Presley on Ed Sullivan,
right.
I really found my direction in the music business when I discovered Buddy Holly and the Everly Brothers.
Oh, I totally understand that statement. I agree with you. I get it. The Everly Brothers.
I completely went that direction. And if you look at that direction, you end up like Buffalo Springfield or Poco and things like that. Right. I mean, that's kind of where I was going in my musical career as well. I really like, singing bands and really lyrical songs and really, bright guitar parts. And it was so. Don and Phil were really more of my mentors than Elvis Presley was, and learning how to play minimalist guitar by listening to Buddy Holly was really something that worked in my favor as well. And so that was where I knew I was going to go. And another thing that really influenced the direction of my career was the fact that here I am at 72 years old.
Yes, sir.
And people say I can still mix a show, and not just mix any show, that I can mix a pretty good show. And who'd have thought that at 72 years old, I'd still be out on the road and still hearing as well as I did 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
I credit that completely to choosing to work for bands that didn't blow my hearing out. The loudest band I ever worked for was Fleetwood Mac or the Doobie Brothers in the late 70s, early 80s. I've never ever worked for a loud band, and I made that decision very consciously. And
It seems to pay off for you.
I had to do a week with David Lee Roth in 1986 when he went out solo with that wonderful band with my old friend Greg Bissonette drumming, who lives here in Thousand Oaks with me.
Yes, sir.
And Billy Sheehan was playing bass.
Yeah,
and
great bass player.
And Steve Vai was the other guitar player.
I mean, that's an extraordinary band to pull together. No two ways about that. But they were peeling paint.
Yeah,
that was their.
It was loud.
Yeah, that's right.
So I did. Do you remember Dave Reynolds, Snake?
I do, in fact.
Dave Reynolds was the original Eagles monitor engineer for Northwest Sound, and he ended up being a very good front of house guy. And David Lee Roth hired Snake to mix front of house, but we all know that Dave is changeable. How's that?
Is that what he is? Changeable. Very nice. That's very nice.
A mutable nature.
Yes.
And he fired Snake on the first day, and so I got a call. This was a MSI account, and I got a call from MSI because I was in LA. Mm-hmm. And I had been using MSI for Whitney and Graceland. Yeah. And so I get a call, will you go down to Long Beach Arena where the band is rehearsing and see if you can save this account for us? And I said, okay, I will go down there and I will spend a week. But at the end of a week, you have to find someone to replace me. And so I get down there, and it's the sound pressure level is ludicrous, and that's with the PA off. We measured at Dave's position, downstage center, 130 dB.
Oh, come on! That's
come on,
medical.
Yeah, come on.
That's stupid.
And what?
Huh?
So we go along, and I'm mixing it big and fat, and it sounds like a rock show, but it's not 118 dB. I get a call to go in the dressing room and talk to Dave, and Dave said, "What's the sound pressure level?" I said, "Well, we're kicking it around about 107, 108. We might peak up a little bit more than that, but we're running a good rock show level. It's big and fat, and everybody seems to be having a good time.
Respectable, absolutely."
And Pete Angelus was happy, the manager at the time. Mm-hmm. It was also the LD, and Patrick Whitley was happy, and apparently Dave was happy. He just wanted to give me a pep talk and said, "It's got to be 118 all the time." I said, "Well, Dave, it's really impossible to have it be 118 all the time.
Yes.
But if you mix it any louder, it's just going to
it'll be mud.
Yeah, it's just going to turn everything to mud.
Yeah.
Well, compound that with the fact that on stage, Vi had 4 wide 4x12s on stage level.
Yeah.
Then you went up 4 feet and up stage 4 feet, and there were 4 more 4x12s.
Oh,
then you went up 4 feet and up stage another 4 feet and another 4 4x12s. And David wanted them on all the time.
That's insane.
Now, try to explain arrival time to David Lee Roth. He doesn't want to hear it.
The math on that might be a little tricky for him to comprehend.
Yeah. I said, Dave, here's what has to happen. you can leave all the cabinets on stage, but 8 of them are dummies. All the ones that aren't on the stage level and closest to Steve have to be turned off. Same thing. The stage left side was a mirror image with Billy Sheehan's cabinets. Right.
Yeah.
Way too many and stair stepping up the stage. So everything with the arrival time was just awful. The cancellation was terrible. If you stood right in front of the stage, all you heard was just mud. And because it was so loud, it was projecting a good 20 rows out into the show. And so every night I'm calling back east to Maryland saying, have you found a front of house guy?
Get me out of
here. I just can't do. This is actually becoming physically debilitating for me. I feel ill when I leave the day at the end of rehearsal and drive home. And so at the end of rehearsal, I get told by the production manager, Patrick Whitley, he said, well, you're coming with us. And I said, no, I'm not.
That's not happening.
I'm not coming with you. And because I have my ears to protect. And so that was the one time I really had to like hold the line. And I said, I am absolutely not going. And sometimes there's things more valuable than money. Mm-hmm. And
that's right.
These two things right here are priceless.
Those are your tools. That's right. Yeah, you can't sacrifice them. But
by choosing not to do that, I became available to do Whitney Houston later on that year in 1986, and with that I was hired to do Paul Simon. So quitting David Lee Roth might have been the smartest thing I ever did. So
it's funny. I've heard that exact statement more than twice.
For different reasons.
Yeah, very similar reasons and different. Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it to get away from anybody in particular. I was doing it to save my ears and to save my health and to save my career, basically.
Yeah, no, the exact right reason.
Right, and so I over the years I have discovered how to make a show that cruises along in the mid to high 90s sound like it's quite a bit louder. Careful application of proper equalization and proper use of compression can do that for it.
That's right.
I try to keep the mix as dynamic as I possibly can, but I also try to keep certain things under control where nothing gets over the top. And it's really been a fun exercise to see how much I can get away with turning down the PA.
That's awesome. I love that. I totally get that. Less is more.
Years ago, we used to finish Paul Simon big stadium shows with the boxer. And so it would be the last encore. So people would be cheering wildly and wildly and wildly. And Paul would come out and he'd stand in front of his microphone and he'd start finger picking the boxer. And I talked him into doing this. I said, just stay on that opening chord. Yeah. Just stay right there. Just keep rocking it back and forth on your finger picking and make the crowd shut up.
Bring them down.
And it was amazing. Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah. 40,000 people screaming and yelling. Paul standing in front of his microphone, just playing the intro to the boxer. And as soon as the crowd got down quiet enough, because Paul was listening to Wedges, so he could hear the crowd, and then he would start to sing. So this huge din comes down to you could hear a pin drop, and then I am just a poor boy.
I know, it's such a great song. God, such a classic.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's just so beautiful. And I love that song.
Amazing.
And that is my favorite Paul Simon song.
Yeah.
And
it's like a group trance when you know how to control the audience, like a person like Paul Simon with the right song, the right moment. It's like a group trance, and everybody is, like you said, almost a religious moment where you're just all in a like space and a like mind. And that's very special. Yeah, good for you, man.
Paul Simon allowed me to become an artist, not just a mixer,
Wow.
and encouraged it. And it was such a privilege to be part of that man's life and creative process over 21 years. And reflecting on the fact that I would be consulted about arrangements. I would be consulted about set lists. I would be consulted about band members.
A true
And I'm thinking to
collaboration.
myself, Paul Simon is asking me this stuff.
Yeah.
Just an old hippie from Boston here, and Paul Simon is asking me to participate in putting together his creative product, and it was just so.
Very, very.
Those nights where you just about to go to sleep in the hotel room and you go, maybe I am doing something right,
Yeah.
And it was, of all the acts that I worked for, no act opened more doors than Paul Simon. And it was, I owe him a debt of gratitude that could never, ever be repaid. And in many ways, I owe everything I am today to Paul Simon hiring me to do the Graceland tour.
He is a real deal national treasure.
The other person I owe so much to is Pat Simmons from the Doobie Brothers for having the faith in me to take a chance on me to mix when I was a nobody. And so, and now that the place of incredible benefactor and wonderful person has been taken over by James Taylor,
Yeah.
And because being a boy from Boston, who else would you want to mix for other than James Taylor?
That's a very good point. Yes. Well, what's next for you?
There was one night.
Oh, please tell us.
When James first hit at the end of the 60s, right? He was very big in Boston and in New York, right? No one else knew who the hell he was, but he was very big in the folk circles in Boston and in New York. And he could sell a few thousand seats in this is probably 1970.
Yeah.
And so that's
a pretty big deal.
And so he's doing the room upstairs at the Boston University Student Union for like 8,000 people, and I'm downstairs playing for like 5 people at the coffee house. Right. The Student Union. Yeah. And so, I can say without lying that I played at Boston University at the same venue on the same night as James Taylor.
Very cool.
Without lying.
Yeah.
I'm not lying.
Yeah.
I wasn't playing with James Taylor.
Right.
But I'm not lying. There I was. And so that gives you a really good illustration of the gap between James Taylor and Dave Morgan as far as on-stage talent goes.
Extraordinary art. Well, no, let's not go there. But as when you were trying to realize your musical dreams, and you got James Taylor up there killing it, just starting to realize his, and then one day probably not imagining that you would be out front for him for 18 years, and you're about, if I understand this correctly. Now. You're about to go out and do another 6-month run with me. You just killed it with James and Jackson Browne. I mean, that tour was beautiful and well received and extraordinary. I mean, that's just got to put a lot of good feelings in your heart. He's still out there doing it, still bringing it.
Oh, I wish you and George and Kyle had come to the San Francisco show, because the James Taylor Jackson Browne show was just absolutely sweet.
We did get a peek at the stage.
I really liked that.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, it was a beautiful night. It was a beautiful show. Both Jackson and James were totally on top of their game.
Yeah.
And I'm just so pleased that there's an arena downtown again that is the damn Cow Palace,
Yeah. It's a very reasonable statement, yes. The Chase is doing pretty good.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful room, too. I thought it sounded really nice in there. And
I've heard different opinions about that. Yeah, but from what I understood, that show was immaculate, spotless. What you guys were able to do there that evening. I know it doesn't always work. It might be a little bit genre specific, it can be a little tricky to mix when you start bringing in the crunch. But yeah, you guys, everybody I know, and it was pretty much everybody in the area was just loved that. Just had a great experience with that show.
Well, it's been such a privilege to work with Jackson Brown's front of house guy, with Paul Dieter, out every night, and we have the greatest time. Paul's a marvelous engineer and a great person to be to share front of house with, and he and I have just great respect and admiration for each other, and we've become pretty good friends now. And it's
Nice.
the bill of Jackson Brown and James Taylor is really inspired. That's a fine pairing.
I couldn't agree with you more. As a grouping, as consummate professionals, as true legends in the game, I mean, it is a perfect show coupling. I can't think of a better pairing. Yeah, that must have been a really great experience.
Oh yeah, and they share a demographic as well. I mean,
Yes,
a Jackson Brown audience is a James Taylor audience as well.
Yeah.
We've had some wonderful collaborations with James, but I think that the most successful has been with Carol and with Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you brought up Vince Gill, and I that's one thing. You know, he ended up in the Eagles, and I was trying to get James to go out on a tour with James Taylor, Vince Gill. Mm-hmm. And then the Eagles scooped him up while I was politicking for this particular branding.
Yeah.
And because I don't know how well you know Mr. Gill, but Vince is one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet in your life. And to have Vince Gill and James Taylor out on the road together would just be heaven for everyone.
I was always very taken by his ability to play. He's an extraordinary picker. He's right up there with like Marty Stewart or Glenn Campbell. I mean, he's just an extraordinary player.
Oh, he's stupidly tasteful.
Yeah,
I mean,
really good.
Just to the point. And I was talking with Vince about guitar playing, and as guitar players do, and he said, you know, your boss is one of the most underrated guitar players in the world. And I said, yeah, absolutely. James has created a style of finger picking that is uniquely James Taylor.
I agree.
And how many instrumentalists are there, especially in today's world, who have their own personal style? You know, you know within the first measure or two if it's James Taylor song. You know.
No, absolutely, and he is singular. He is. Talk about national treasure. You know, you've kind of been associated with some of the true legends of our game, particularly in the singer-songwriter lane, which is the whole playlist of my '70s life. You know, coming up, and I just can't tell you what a treat it's been. First of all, I appreciate you being here. We did this extra long. We went 80 minutes on this. And there was no other way to talk to a person like you, sir, a person that has accomplished as much you have, has brought as much as you have to the table. You are known as easily one of the best, cleanest mixing engineers in the world. And it has been an absolute delight for you to come on and share your experiences with us, my friend. Just a treat.
Well, I enjoyed it very much. And thank you to you and Kyle for having me. And please give George a hug for me as well. And
I will, for sure.
I've been extraordinarily blessed in my life. I've been so fortunate to have been in the right place at the right time, to be able to be available to work for these wonderful people. And I can't express my gratitude any more with any more strength or even humbleness to look back on what I've been allowed to do in this business. It's extremely humbling, and I'm just so grateful that the business has supported me for going on 60 years now. I mean, I started performing when I was 14, and now I'm 72. So we're knocking on the door on 60 years, and to be able to spend that amount of time in one field is extraordinarily fortunate, and I can't give voice to the emotion in any other way other than saying, a deep and moving thank you to our wonderful industry. What a joy it's been to create an industry that the whole live performance industry that
That's right.
didn't exist in a post World War II era that sprang out of a bunch of dropouts. Because the music business was our dropout business.
That's right.
For my generation, and it just Paul has a song called "Born at the Right Time," and that's what he's talking about: being able to be part of this post-war the post-World War II generation that experienced such amazing cultural changes, yet had such a rich artistic experience at the same time. The whole thing that happened to music in the '60s. That was right. I was right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
What a better place to be, as far as and starting out, there was nobody to tell you that you were doing anything wrong, because there was no wrong way of doing it. Nobody knew the right way to do it. We just did it.
No, and that's what, as younger guys, and not much younger, but younger enough to say, you guys cut the path for us. There's no two ways about that. You cut the path for us, and you gave us a guiding light of and a level of a standard that we can understand and try to live up to. And frankly, Dave, as far as you put the bar up there, Mr. Morgan, it is a challenge every show we send these people out. My brother and this company sends folks out on these big shows, and to try to get them to understand the grace and the less is more concept, and to carry the torch on from folks like yourself who've made this industry what it is. We cannot be grateful enough. We cannot say enough what a fascinating, interesting ride it is to get to share your experiences with us and to inspire us to go forward, to carry the torch and keep this alive. And then just today, my young apprentice over here, my good friend, had 5 young minds in here on an S6L training. And that's what we do. As we get older, we understand at some point we're going to pass this off. We care, and we love what we do. We love this industry. And so the great young minds that are coming up take the reins from folks like yourself and us going forward. And we hope that this industry can go on further. But we couldn't have done it without you, David. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing your experiences, everything you've done for the industry. You, sir, are, in my book, I mentioned this national treasure thing. I'm going to get off here, but about the artists. But always in my book, it's been the Greg Prices, Brad Maddox, the Robert Scovilles, the Dave Morgans of the world that I always wanted to emulate and be like. That was interested in me at the gig. And we can't thank you enough for what you've brought to the table. You are an amazing human being. Wish you continued success, and we hope to see you out in James Taylor's next tour coming up here in the next few months in April. I hope you have a great tour, my friend.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for having me. I really appreciate you giving me a chance to converse with y'all tonight. And I had a great time, and let's do it again.
I would like that very much. Thank you, sir. Have a great evening. Take good care of yourself.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye, sir.
Good night.
Good night. Jesus Christ.
That was awesome.
That's
dude.
rock and roll history right there.
Seriously.
That is the history of rock and roll. As we understand it, what we try to do, he did it first. He came up with the people, and his recall is fascinating. How the names, he just named virtually all the best musicians and all the best players behind the scenes that got us to here, got us to 2022. I love the history of what we do. I love a person like David who can explain it articulately and clearly in a way, just fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I love that here on our show, we document these histories, and they're here forever. No matter
all
what
about
happens,
the stories.
when this show goes off, and no matter what happens, it's out there for people to review and to understand the great contributions that people like David Morgan and others have put into this game that entertains millions of. And he made a great point. It's about, when we bring people together and we do these big shows and they go great, and you go see Jackson Browne or you go see a James Taylor type show, that's like therapy, man. That's hundreds of thousands of people getting together in a joint space to kind of forget all this nonsense, the wars of the world, the politics, all this nonsense, and go get a good peace of mind and get a some extra special feeling. And when a person like Dave Morgan's out at the board, you know you're going to get every nickel of your money's worth, and it's just going to be a magical experience. And that's something special. That's why I've always thought, you know, the folks out there, they're kind of civilians. What we do is this other thing, and it's why I feel like it can very much relate to you and to him, and we share this. It's the whole reason of the show. So thank you, David Morgan, for coming on. That was absolutely a treat for us. Thank you, folks, the audience, for staying in there. I know it was an hour and a half, 90-minute show. You've seen me do this a couple times before. You can't have Greg Price on and shut him off in the middle of a Black Sabbath story. You're just not going to do it. And it's my treat to be able to capture these moments. So thank you guys for being patient and hanging in there. We want to thank all the diehards in the audience. It looks like Chris Canada and Charles Ricky and all the people wanted to say thank you to Dave for coming on and all that he shared with this industry. These are the brothers and the people we love very much. We're going to do this every week at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Thursdays. Next week, we've got the great Alan Kraft. Now, Alan Kraft's a heavy cat. He's been in the game for a long time, promoter, backline guy. I remember one of the first jobs I had in real rock and roll coming out of the punk rock thing in the early 80s was about 85, 86 with my brother. We picked up an Atco act, which is Atlantic Records, called Eddie and the Tide. He was their guitar tech at the time. He moved on to Greg Kihn. I took his job there. Then when he came out 3 or 4 years later of Greg Kihn and moved on to, I think, the Smithereens or Tina, I took over at Greg Kihn. It's the history we have together. He's an extraordinary cat. He's a long lifetime friend, and we're going to have him in here right sitting over there talking about it, kind of going to go through memory lane down the walk of life. Until then, well, that would be next week. Come see it. Check it out. It should be a great show. We're looking forward to it. Until then, you guys, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us and hearing our stories. And we're going to see you next week. So be good to each other. Be kind. Take good care.